studies show that 70% of the people that are homeless because of the disease of addiction. And in many cases, that one bucket you described as a person with severe mental health issues, those could be symptoms manifesting themselves from their drug use. They might otherwise be capable and competent individuals in the grip of some sort of meth psychosis.
So I'm really lucky to work in downtown Denver, just blocks away from the Capitol. It's where we do our best work. It's great to be here. We have the studio here. Sadly, the neighborhood is, well, turned to crap, and it's not getting any better. The homeless problem is getting worse and worse. I don't even want to call it a homeless problem. We're starting to use the word bums, and that really hurts me. Paul Scudo, thank you for being here. Step Denver, you do incredible work. When I say bums, here's what I mean. I used to look at these people with such great empathy of we need to help them. I want to do something to help them. But after they've broken into our place, after they vandalize our place and litter in our place and defecate on our property and drop needles and use condoms and vomit and urine, and it's now somehow our job to clean up after their mess and try to shoo them away, it's just another problem we have to deal with. And I worry that I've lost the human aspect for it. Does that make any sense?
Makes complete sense. Jon, thanks so much for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Your show is amazing, and I like that you speak the truth. I have a similar moral concern, right? My job, my life is to help people like me, people that lost everything to the disease of addiction and are now living on the street. And that used to be different 10, 20 years ago. But this problem has grown, and I think there's reasons that it has grown. I think people are just becoming accepting, becoming numb. What you're describing to me is this numbness that comes about of, oh, they're just window dressing now, right? I see it everywhere. There's nothing I can do. The government isn't doing anything. There are good organizations that are trying to help, but we just don't seem like we're keeping up with the problem.
And it's the crime. It's that since the city is not enforcing the laws, then property owners and neighbors have to clean up the damage that is done to them. They are being victimized, but not in a way that you can arrest one guy. The cop will come in and shoo them off, and then they're back, and then they're back, and then they're back. And at this point, I don't care. It hurts me. Mm-hmm. It hurts me that I don't care, that I just want the people I work with to be safe and be comfortable, and that we're not spending our donors' money doing what the cops should be doing. And I'm pissed.
I agree, and let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
At what point do the rights of certain people supersede the rights of the community at large? You work very hard, you have a family, you take care of your family, your home, you take pride in your community. And for us to say, as a society, this is okay and we're not going to do anything about it, seems to me to go against the fiber of our community.
So when Aurora Mayor, oh my God, Alzheimer's,
Mike
Kaufman, Alzheimer's, you don't want it. It's terrible. So when Mike did this, when he went undercover, lived for a week, I think he nailed it right. He said there were about 3 types of people. He didn't really say in what ratio. He said there were kind of working alcoholics, guys who knew how to get money during the day to keep up their booze or substance habit, go into the shelters at night, and it was, that they knew how to do it. I think of Otis from Mayberry. Then you've got truly crazy people who have mental problems. I hear them yelling and swearing at themselves as they're walking down the streets in what looks like a violent eruption. I think, this is not compassionate to let that person just wander the streets. He needs to be in an institution. And then what really got me and what I really see is this third one, which is, how to put it, a bohemian lifestyle. I wish I was at Woodstock, but I can't do it, so I'm doing this instead. And so we're doing drugs and we're living on the street. And the amount of young people, healthy young people, and young women who are now living on the streets, that's an area I don't understand at all. And I don't have sympathy for it. That seems like a choice.
It does. I agree with you. And Mike did a great job in kind of identifying those different segments. The studies show that 70% of the people that are homeless because of the disease of addiction. And in many cases, that one bucket you described as a person with severe mental health issues, those could be symptoms manifesting themselves from their drug use. They might otherwise be capable and competent individuals in the grip of some sort of meth psychosis.
Stop there for a second, because that's got me thinking about it in a little different way. A friend of mine, I'm a big fan of Dick Lamb, former governor. I just think he was an amazing man, a free thinker. And he once told a friend of mine, almost in tears, that one of his regrets was, quote, letting people out of the institutions. And if you remember in the 70s, there was a big push to deinstitutionalize people who, and not for bad reasons. A lot of those institutions were terrible, awful places. Mm-hmm. One flew over the cuckoo's nest kind
Correct.
Of terrible place. And as someone who has a son with Down syndrome, people like that would end up in these prisons instead of being mainstream. It was awful. That being said, people who are truly psychotic or truly schizophrenic and can't control it or are out, they need that help. I never really thought that if these people got drug treatment, maybe those symptoms wouldn't manifest. So is this largely a drug issue, or is it largely a lifestyle issue?
I think...
Or is that a false dichotomy?
It's both. Both things are true, right? It is a dialectic. Many people don't want to assume responsibility for themselves, right? Why would I want to go to work, pay taxes, pay rent, pay insurance, deal with the man, all of these things, right? When if there are resources available for me to get my basic needs met, I can have a tent, I can have it on the street, I can get blankets at the shelter, I can get food at the shelter, I can get medical care at the cost of the government, i.e. the taxpayer, then any resources that I can accumulate, I can put towards my drug use, right? There are other people that don't want that lifestyle. I was one of those people. Upper middle class family, college educated, no addiction, no trauma, no mental health, no abuse, afforded all of the opportunities of that upper middle class lifestyle. I started using, like most people do, in their peer group, in their early teens, to bond with that peer group, to experiment, to see what all the hubbub is about, a beer or marijuana or whatever that might be. But 20% of us suffer from a genetic predisposition to have an allergic reaction to mind-altering substances. This reaction begins a chemical process that once that takes root, I am unable to make logical, rational decisions, and I can't stop using without the help of others, usually some sort of detox treatment and then long-term recovery. 20%
seems like an outlandish number. Where does that come from?
So those are studies done by SAMHSA.
I don't know what that is.
So SAMHSA is the federal government's mental health and substance abuse arm.
Got it.
NIDA, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, NADAC, the National Association of Addiction Counselors.
But Paul, if the number is 20%, I guarantee you 20% of the population are not living out in tents,
Correct.
Hanging out, vandalizing Denver property and committing all these crimes. They're not out there stealing cars to sell the catalytic converters, as Denver has become the #1 city for auto theft. They're not. They might have the problem, and we've all known working alcoholics. We've known guys who've been alcoholics until the day they die, but they still showed up at work. We know some guys who've fallen on and off the wagon, guys like you who proudly talk about it, which I think is just so important for people to hear. Pete Boyles, a dear friend, I love it that he has always been really open about it, and that, I think, helps other people. So why is it you have a job as a recovering alcoholic, and these guys are doing meth?
And that's a great question, and that's where I was headed with that, is the vast majority of those of us that suffer from this disease may end up having consequences that include homelessness. But because we're ashamed, embarrassed, humiliated by that, we do a few different things. We hide, right? So when I was homeless for 2 years, I hid under bushes in the park. I didn't want people to see me. I didn't want people to know that I was homeless. I didn't want to impinge on society, right?
Was it? Let me ask you. Was it that, hey, I'm a good guy and I don't want to impinge on society, or was there was a time of social shame, which is, listen, people will look down on me. I will be ashamed. I will be embarrassed to be that guy sleeping out in public. Whereas these kids, particularly the kids, this is, here I am. This is my lifestyle, and I love it. That's a very there's no shame there. There's a pride. Am I wrong to say there's a pride that they have living that style?
That's absolutely right, and that's what I was saying. I had the shame, guilt, humiliation. There was that, but I also had been instilled with good values. Just because I have a problem doesn't mean that I put that problem on the community at large. So the vast majority of the people suffering from addiction that find themselves homeless usually try to end up getting help, or they're like Otis, right? I've learned to work the system, to manage my addiction, stay off the streets, still get some money, right? But there is a percentage of these folks, because it has become more and more societally acceptable to say these are victims. They're victims of mental health. They're victims of abuse. They're victims of trauma. They're victims of the economy, the cost of housing, right? We always want to insert some societal reason because there's still such a stigma around addiction.
You said you weren't a victim.
Absolutely not.
Wait a second. You said you have a genetic predisposition.
That doesn't make me a victim. Is someone with cancer a victim? Is someone with diabetes a victim? No. It's unfortunate, and we suffer an illness, right? But the fact that I know I have an illness makes me responsible for treating it. I can't expect you, my parents, the taxpayers, the government, shelters, anybody to enable me and take care of me. I can't expect the community to, just because I don't want to work, to allow me to camp on the street and accumulate tons of garbage. Again, when does the right of one or a few individuals supersede that of the community that is putting in the effort, paying taxes, trying to build a good community?
So I have this terrible economist's mind, and when you have an economist's mind, it's not always perceived as charitable. It just, you think about inputs and outputs and this and that, and the biggest truth I know is that what you tax, you get less of. That what you subsidize, you get more of. Okay. And I keep hearing that we need more money in to fight this. And so we put more money in and more money in. Starting off with Hickenlooper's Road Home, and then another tax increase and another tax increase to solve the problem. And now the state is looking at $200 million to tackle the issue and without seeing that all we're doing is subsidizing it more. And the more you subsidize it, the more you get it. Instead of putting the money into enforcement and getting people off the streets and force them. You heard this right. force them into treatment. I'm at that point.
I don't think that's unreasonable, right? We tried this in the 60s. We tried it in the 70s. Government subsidized housing turns into the projects. Unless there is accountability that goes along with that. If we give you a hand up, if we're going to give you a place to live, we're going to give you a food stamps card, and we're going to give you insurance, you have to get a full-time job. You have to have a savings requirement on a monthly basis. You have to contribute in some way to the community. You have to pass regular drug and alcohol screens, and there has to be an off-ramp, John. You are going to be off of the government assistance, because that's what it was. It was meant to be assistance. You are going to be off of the assistance within a year. Let's say, I'll give you 2 years. As long as you're showing effort and progress, and you're hitting goals, and you're hitting milestones, then the help is something that we could justify and validate.
And that's the beauty of Step Denver, is that, and I'll put this out first and foremost, you don't take any government money. Zero government money, which means you get to make your own rules.
Correct.
And the rules you have, you've basically just described. Let me kick it back to you, because I've been a fan of Step Denver for a long time, and its predecessor, Step 13. And the idea was, you come in off the streets, we will help you get clean, we will give you a roof, we will give you a job. You will take the job, you will be drug tested, we will teach you how to use a checking account, how to use cash, how to fill out an application. We will find you work. And what I love about the program is this peer mentoring part of it, that at first you're kind of in this dorm, and then you see these other guys who live upstairs, and you're like, they got TVs and stereos and a refrigerator, and how did you do that? Well, because I got a job, I learned how to save some money, I got a paycheck, I saved the money, I did this, I bought a TV, and now after work I come home and enjoy my TV that I own. And these guys see that and go, it is possible. All right, and the success rate at Step 13, I'll just call it tough love. I don't know if that's the best way to put it or improper, but it's really pretty impressive. You find the off-ramp because you can set conditions. What happens if I'm in your program and I show up with a hot UA? What do you do?
We ask you to leave. We don't ask you to leave. We tell you to leave. And sometimes it's difficult, because I have to tell you, as someone that suffers from this disease, that lost everything, that was homeless, I have it in my heart. It's my personal mission to help others recover and rebuild their lives. So while we have this accountability principle, we do it with professional, polite, and compassionate demeanors. There is no yelling and screaming, degrading anyone. We teach men that your choices, actions, and behaviors have outcomes. Positive outcomes are rewards, TV. Negative outcomes are consequences. You're going to get kicked out, right? Or you're going to be given community service.
The positive rewards, I said TV, but it might be something else.
Could be whatever they want.
It might be the vacation. It
It's
might be a
what
car.
they earn.
Yeah, it's theirs, and it gets back to ownership. The reason why the projects fail, why anything fails, is that people don't own it. When people own their own home, they care for it. I always ask people, so when was the last time you washed a rental car? Well, you don't. You take care of your own car. And you teach people in Step Denver the pride of ownership. And it's not just the stuff, it's the ownership of your own decisions, of your own future. That's the empowerment. And the success stories, and I've met many of them, it's incredible to see that and to see the opposite happening faster. Why is it happening faster and faster on the other side? Why is it so much worse now than it was just 5 years ago?
You mentioned it earlier in our conversation. 10 years ago, it was not acceptable to be on the street. You hid, If you were walking the street and you were drinking and using during the day, at night you hid in an alley, you hid behind a dumpster, you hid under a bush, you went to a shelter. It was not acceptable to be camping in the right-of-way on a public street. And today, because we've become more and more compassionate, it has become taboo to say that's not acceptable, right? Because then you're not a compassionate person. You don't care. How could you do that? And with the advent of social media, anything someone says can spread like wildfire. And people are so concerned with how they look and being perceived as someone that cares, right? I stand with the homeless. It's not fair. It's the economy, right? If I hear it's not fair one more time, right? And this is coming from someone that does care, that spends their life trying to help people.
Is it fair that this guy can't hold down a job? Is it fair that he's chemically dependent or has a mental illness? Is it fair that he can't get a job because he doesn't have a home address? He can't have a work record. No one will give it a second choice. He has to hit the box that says, I have been arrested, I've got a felony. Mm-hmm. And that's not fair.
No, but what it is it's the results of who I am as a human being. Is it fair that I have the disease of addiction? No. Am I responsible for taking care of that? Yes. Are there organizations like Step Denver that will give you a place to live, will initially give you food to eat, will help you find a job, will teach you life skills to be able to take care of yourself and allow you the time and the support to get to being self-sufficient? So no, it's not fair. I'm sure your dad said this to you growing up. Life is not fair, but I am responsible. Given whatever my circumstances are.
Not only do I remember the old man telling me that, now I'm telling my kids that. Yeah.
Right? And I am responsible for taking care of that, right? Different people come to that understanding at different times. So that 20-something person that's living on the street, at some point I have hope that they're going to come to the awakening that I can't do this anymore. But you know when it comes quicker? When we say you can't sleep there, you can't do that. We're not giving you a food card without some sort of accountability and effort and buy-in on your part. You don't just get something because life's not fair.
Is it harder now compared to back when Bob Cote did Step 13? Is it harder now because it is acceptable to not do the hard job? I'm thinking of it this way. I can go to Step Denver. I can sober up. It's hard. They can get me a job. Work is hard. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have to walk by these guys who are going to see me as a loser in my own community. This is my community. And they're going to look at me and go, look, Paul's going to a job. Have fun. I got people bringing me food. Mm-hmm. And you're going to go out there and work for minimum wage to get... people are bringing me clothes. I'm going to work to try to earn some clothes at a secondhand store. Is it more embarrassing now to go to Step Denver for help?
That's a great question, John. One I hadn't considered before. I would say for some it is, because peer pressure, particularly in that community, can be a little overwhelming. But I think the folks that come to us have gotten to the point where they don't care what anybody thinks anymore. They are exhausted, they're tired, they're cold, they're hungry, and that lifestyle does not serve them anymore. And when they come to us and they say, yeah, I don't care, just tell me what you need me to do. And we say, hey, this is going to be hard, like you just said. And most of them are at the point where they say, I don't care. I have no other options.
Do they have to get to the very bottom?
Not everyone. Different people have a different emotional bottom, right? A different threshold for what their pain tolerance is, right? I know people that don't lose it all, that come directly into my 12-step fellowship, and they're able to arrest the problem and get their life back before it goes in the toilet.
Should there be, this is a policy question, should there be a very, very bottom safety net? In other words, if you're advocating for a society that doesn't put up with people sleeping on the streets, that doesn't feed people unless they have a job, that does, if they're not contributing, not that they have to have a job, but they have to be sober, they have to do this, they have to do that. Shouldn't there be some sort of fail-safe for those people who fall through the cracks? I mean, so that guy can't get it together. He's still doing drugs. He certainly can't hold down a job. Maybe he's having the attack we're talking about when he's walking down the streets, fighting with somebody we can't see. So do we just let him starve, or is there what's the bottom?
That's the question that we've been trying to answer for years now, right? Are we as a society obligated to take care of those people that can't seem to take care of themselves? And on the other hand, there is something to be said for allowing an individual to have the consequences necessary to affect that psychic change that gets them exhausted enough, gets them willing enough, and has them seek help. So that is not a direct answer to your question. I know that I talked around that. And the answer is, should we have help available? Yes. Should there be a commitment on the part of the individual getting help to meet certain requirements and responsibilities to be to have that help available to them? Yes. The question then becomes, what about those people that choose not to get help? What do you do with them?
Let me throw out what I think might be a more concrete answer, not knowing anything in this world. When Hickenlooper, as governor, said, we've got this prison that we're not using. Maybe we ought to convert it for a homeless shelter. And the left went apoplectic. How dare you? And he never said it again. He was thinking out loud. Never think out loud if you're a politician. Mm-hmm. But actually, it makes some good sense. So for that person if the idea of, fine, you can't make it on the streets, we're going to make sure you don't get food here, you don't get assistance here, you don't get this, but we will gladly give you a ride out of town to this facility. It's no longer a prison. You're free to leave anytime you want, but you'll have a roof, you'll have a shower, you'll have medical care, and you'll have food. There it is. And
can I use drugs in there?
No.
Many people are not going to choose that option. There has been another...
What if they could? What if they could use drugs? Play that out for me. Which is, yeah, hey, when you go back into your cell, you can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
And you can just stay stoned and high and on everything. And you just sit there and drool yourself silly watching TV for the rest of your life. Come in, we'll give you some mush to eat, and there you have it. Would that work?
Are we forcing people to go there? Because there was
Yes.
an idea similar
Yes.
to this that was proposed, that you get BLM land 100 miles out in the middle of nowhere, and you say to folks that are recurring homeless people that are living that bohemian lifestyle that you've indicated, and you say, you cannot live on the street anymore. There are services that are available. Should you choose to accept those services, there will be responsibility and accountability that goes along with that, and an off-ramp. If you choose not to have the services, you're going to be put out onto this encampment out there. There will be tents, there will be porta potties, there will be a food truck with bologna sandwiches, there will be medical presence in case of emergency, there will be a light police presence to ensure there's not murder and rapes, and there will be case managers to help you navigate should you decide, I'm sick of this and I want to come back and access these services, all right? And it's far enough away that I can't just walk back into town, right? You can do whatever you want out there. But if the drug dealers drive out there, you can use.
Okay.
Right?
But how do I get the money for the drugs?
That's your problem, right?
And then I'm going to come back right back here.
Then what we're going to do is we have buses that just run, and and we put you on the buses, and you go back out there.
All right, play this out for me.
But one other thing I will say is that when this was proposed, there were folks that say that harkens back to concentration camps, Indian reservations. You're telling a subset of the community that they have to live out there because they don't meet the community standards. Now, do I think that might give somebody the motivation to want to access services? I do, because the consequences will be miserable enough that I don't want to live that, right? But you need the whole community to say, we're not going to tolerate this, and that is an acceptable solution.
What if? This is a what if. All right, we're playing head games.
Sure.
These are thought experiments. So the same encampment we're talking about. We've got a facility, all the rest, and we, the state, will provide you with whatever drug you want. We'll know it's clean because it doesn't go through those channels. And if you want to sit and destroy your life with meth all day long, here's a pile of meth because it's cheap as dirt. Go for it. But in order to enjoy it, you're staying here. And then there's a theory, and there's some research to show that many people, once they're on that, then lose the excitement of, how do I get the drugs? Where do I find the drugs? How do I pay for the drug? How do I steal something so I can pay for the drug? And if what they're doing all day is sitting watching TV, get their heroin, go back and watch TV, get their heroin, the life is boring. And many of them, after a year or two, cycle out of it because of that. Is that a reasonable thing to try?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think it'll happen. Oh, no. It wouldn't. But I think it's a very interesting thing to consider.
Aren't they doing something like that in Vancouver? Don't they have some homes where
they have safe injection sites where you can go and use safely, where you're going to be monitored?
Government doesn't provide the stuff.
No, you have to get the stuff. In essence, what you're saying is the stuff is now legal in this building. Yeah. It's illegal everywhere else. It's just legal here, right? So if you can get it to there, we'll give you a safe place to use, medical attention if you OD, we'll give you clean needles, the whole works, right? What you're proposing would be taxpayer subsidized.
Which is, I'm not proposing it, I'm just floating it, which is thinking out loud, a dangerous thing to do. So that safe injection site, instead of being here, is all the way out there. And by the way, the free stuff is out there. You can't bring it back in here. That way, if you fall through the cracks, you go there. Fine. Get high. You don't have to steal anything. We'll feed you. You get stoned all day, and you live out there, and your life is boring. But you have as much drugs and TV as you want.
I think the body count would become enormous. So we would also need to think about what are we going to do with the overdoses and things of that nature. If we were to say that, and again, talking out loud, which is dangerous, right? We were going to allow people to experience their overdose without any medical attention, you would have a higher than normal rate of death.
All right, and I know we're going down a really stupid path, but I'm enjoying this. So if you're giving them clean drugs, chances that the overdose go down very, very little. It's that you have
It's about
fentanyl.
the quantity, not always the makeup. If you use more than your body can handle, you're going to overdose. And usually the cleaner it is, sometimes the more dangerous it is because you don't know until it's too late.
And also, when you buy stuff illegally, it's not like you can bring it to the return counter and you can't report them to the Better Business Bureau going, I wanted heroin and this thing is cut with fentanyl. I don't see that on the ingredients package. There's no lawsuit there.
And the addict's not even thinking about that. I am not thinking logically.
If you can wave the wand, all right, and I know where we want to get to, but starting tomorrow for the next 2 years, in Denver, what would be the policy that would clean up our streets, help those who need to be helped, and dissuade those who aren't shamed by their lifestyle?
That's a difficult question, and it would start with making sure there are accesses to enough service for the people that want help. That there are no.
Isn't that already here, though?
There are no barriers.
It seems.
No, there's not enough free drug treatment.
Really?
There's enough insurance and private pay drug treatment because that's the biggest racket that there is.
Really?
Right? But places that would freely detox, give you 90 days of treatment, and then a recovery program for a year to help you rebuild your life, there are almost, one of those, right?
Really?
And so...
then why are we paying for everything else? Shouldn't we be paying for that?
But along with that would need to come this program of accountability and a program in which you would have to work. And you're moving towards personal responsibility and self-sufficiency. It has to be more encompassing of life skills and affecting a behavioral change, right? This idea that, hey man, it's a free country, I can do whatever I want. If you want that, then we go back to the suggestion you're making. Is there a place that we all agree that somebody that wants that can go live that? And that would be a tough conversation. Because there would be
tough conversations.
There would be so many people.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's amazing. So many people, but my city has turned into a crime-infested sewer where people don't want to come downtown, where I have to worry about our employees' safety, where we're cleaning up stuff. To go full circle, I've had it. All right, let me ask you this to wrap it up. I see people on the side of the streets and get accosted for money. Hey, man. And by the way, I love the God bless part. There's just something about, no, God bless.
They've learned how to manipulate.
Right.
It's a survival mechanism.
Why should I not give them money? Doesn't it seem like, sometimes I see young women who look like they're in trouble and, they want food. And sometimes, if you have food, I see people give them bottles of water and bottles of this. When Mike Kaufman talked about how he didn't lose weight on this, and that he got the best desserts of his life and the best meals of his life, and people just brought it to him, it was an eye-opener for me. Why shouldn't people bring food to the homeless? Why shouldn't people give direct cash to the homeless? If I give them a bottle of Gatorade or a pizza, they're not going to be able to smoke it. They're not going to be able to inject it. Why shouldn't I do that?
There are many people that will tell you should do that, right? What is the value of one life? If you keep that person alive today, is there a chance that someday they will get into recovery and that's the person that someday cures cancer? By the same token, there are folks that say, the longer you enable the cycle of addiction by providing base resources so that all my attention and focus can be on getting the money to get drugs and use drugs, you are perpetuating that cycle, right? Each individual has to make their own choice there. And different faith-based organizations or individuals have beliefs about helping people at any cost. Other folks have beliefs about, hey, we're human beings and you need to take responsibility for yourself. And if that self is miserable, that's part of what gets you.
This is your world. When you drive up in the corner and you've got a dollar bill on your dashboard and a box of donuts on your passenger seat, and you drive out to that corner, what do you do?
I roll down the window and I say, hi, how you doing? What's your name? Hey, John, I hope you're doing okay today. If you need some help, there are some organizations that will help you. I have a card, right? If you're someone that truly wants to help, get the card of the name of your favorite charity. Please call these people. They will help you, right? That's what I would do. That's what I do. I hand them the Step Denver cards. Please go get help. If it's a woman, I hand them the Stepping Stones or Serenity card or one of the women's programs card. Please get some help, right?
You, Paul, do not give them cash. You, Paul, do not give them food.
I do not, because I don't want them to take the cash and use it for drugs that might kill them right there. I don't want them to give them the box of donuts that they sell for cash to buy drugs, or even if they eat all the donuts, that says to them, all right, now I'm full, I can focus on what I really need. I don't feel like that's helping the problem. But the most important thing I do is show them that they're a human being. Hey, how you doing? You give them a smile. You ask them what their name is. You tell them, hey, please get some help. Just treat them like you would want to be treated.
You are a better man than I, because when there was a woman vomiting on our doorstep that we had to clean and then pulled down her pants to urinate, I really did not feel like saying,
that's different than someone standing on a corner.
Right.
Yeah.
And when people break in and do damage, when we have to pay for it, I just don't feel like saying, how are you? I feel like saying something very else. And I'd be really clear. My anger's not really with them. My anger is with our governor, with our mayor, with our city leaders who will not enforce the law. All these people have broken laws. They should be behind bars. If they're behind bars, they will get the food they need. They will get the treatment that they need, medical treatment at least, and they will be off the streets. What I see is a system that has complete disregard for law-abiding people and instead letting the world go turned upside down for criminals. This is a bizarro Denver we're living in.
Mm-hmm. It's tough. And to me, it also comes back to community members and our voice in saying, this is not acceptable. And the most effective way to do that is vote. And so everybody that votes for the folks you're talking about and then votes to strike the camping ban should be required to have those folks live in their yard.
I agree. People want to support Step Denver. They should. Where do they go?
Thanks, John. If you need help and you would like to get off the streets and deal with your drug addiction, you can call Step Denver at 303-295-7837 or show up at 2095 Larimer Street in downtown Denver and apply for the program. If you would like to help...
Larimer Street between where and where?
Between 20th and 21st.
There you go.
Right in the ballpark neighborhood. If you would like to help us help our community and donate to Step Denver, please go to stepdenver.org. That's stepdenver, all one word, .org. Thank you, John.
You need more than cash. You need jobs, right?
We need full-time tax-paying payroll check jobs.
That's what I mean.
So if you own a business or you work for a business that is in need of men who are willing to work, go to stepdenver.org, choose the Contact Us box, give us some information, and we'll have our career counselor get in touch with you. Great idea.
Because this is really what people, and especially now where we can't find workers, you've got people who want to work.
60 of them.
And they're also drug tested. Mm-hmm. And so they're not coming to, and you're there, and you've got a track record of decades of doing this. And it's, I've talked to people who've hired guys from Step Denver, and they've been impressed. They've been impressed with these guys, the work ethic, that they're trying to get their lives together, that they work hard, the honesty of them, the humbleness of it, but also, quite selfishly, I know guys who feel really good that they were able to help out by giving that job. You do incredible work.
Thank you, John, as are you.
And I can't wait until you run for mayor. I think it's going to be spectacular. When are you going to announce that?
Let me get back with you on that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
See, I already talk like a politician, right?
Blunt. Paul, thanks.
John, thank you.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.